Games don't have to be hard to be fun. That doesn't mean they can't be hard though. You know, some people like to play Souls-likes religiously out there, and I will be the first to tell you that older Elder Scrolls games were much harder than they currently are, especially whenever you look at the Elder Scrolls Online or Elder Scrolls Blades compared to something like Daggerfall or Morrowind, but those aren't the main focus of this video. I know what you guys are here for, but since people want me to switch primarily to discussion-focused content, this isn't going to just be a Sonic channel anymore. That content isn't going away though. I still have plenty to say about Sonic. This video is mainly about the conversation surrounding how people think Frontiers is too simple and not hard enough, which is understandable for the hard difficulty because it really isn't that hard, but I don't think simple games are necessarily a bad thing. Other games have streamlined mechanics to make them more fun to control. Why can't Sonic? Look at the entire Half-Life library of games. His mechanics are simple but effective at doing the job they need to do when necessary. Half-Life was one of, if not the first, FPS games to have a more linear structure, revolutionizing the way modern FPS game stories are told today and the way they are designed. I know this sounds stupid comparing a genre-defining masterpiece to a Sonic game, and I'm guilty of saying stupid stuff about comparisons myself that I no longer agree with, but hear me out. Both of these games are fast-paced and action-oriented, only forcing the player to stop to solve puzzles and utilize gimmicks when necessary to progress, with those gimmicks being unique to the game they're in and utilized in later entries if proven efficient and fun the first time. It's just that there is a limit to how simple a game can be before it stops being fun, and Half-Life found a balance while Sonic Frontiers, well, it's complicated. It did go back and borrow elements from Forces and Lost World just like Kishimoto stated, but some of those prior ideas may not have been utilized to their fullest potential in the base game. Kishimoto has stated that he wants to please everybody when he makes a Sonic game, but I don't think he will ever do that if he doesn't take some of the criticism about the 2D sections and the linear stages. I've talked about this in a previous video, but I'm going to reiterate it here. I do think the 2D sections in the new type of 3D Sonic games, besides Generations and Unleashed, can work, don't get me wrong, but if they aren't made optional to progress the main story or in some way made optional to please both parties, he's never going to please the people complaining about the 2D sections in 3D games. I would say something about the linear stages, but Kishimoto has already taken criticism for it, at least seemingly, like pretty much every aspect of the game except for the cyberspace levels, but even then those are more or less optional, so you don't have to like them to like the game. Giving the player the agency to make their own decisions when they get bored of a certain activity is one of the best features ever added to a Sonic game. You don't like cyberspace? Go fish with Big. Mechanic design entirely around making the game less hard and rewarding you for taking a break from the action. You don't like that either? Go collect the tokens in the open zone. You don't like that either? Then I don't know what to tell you, refund the game if it's really that bad to you. There are countless examples of games where the mechanics aren't necessarily hard to master but fun to control. Some heavily story-focused games rely on creativity and interesting mechanics to make the experience never get boring and stay fun with new ideas throughout. And with Frontiers, it's debatable that the new ideas introduced throughout the game really help make the game that much more fun, but no question about it that it's more or less accessible to the average casual gamer and that the story was a little better than previous entries in the series. And I think some of the reasons people argued about Frontiers not being actually good in the sense that it isn't creative as other games on the market are justified in the sense that it could have been more creative or added some more unique optional mechanics now that the hype has died down, and I'm not just blindly following the hive mind saying it's the best Sonic game ever made, like I feel like I was more or less doing initially on the channel. But what Frontiers lacks in those areas, it makes up for in the accessibility part of the game, which is almost all of it. You can customize how your character controls in the open zone. You want momentum closer to the classic games than the Boost games and momentum? Change the settings. You want more or less fixed movement and automated level design? Go play Retail 06. I'm joking, calm down. Every Sonic game has been automated to some extent since Sonic 3 and Knuckles, mainly for spectacle though, in some cases to help the player go in the right direction or help them not get as frustrated with the game. Prime example in Frontiers would be the auto combo feature, which is actually kinda weird. Why you don't unlock it as soon as you can do a combo attack on an enemy is beyond me, since the entire point of it seems to be an accessibility feature or just for casuals who don't care about the combos, but that's besides the point. It's designed to help people along with the other features features I mentioned to make the game a little more fun for people who aren't as hardcore gamers as the fans of the franchise, while giving the option to disable it to those who do want the slightly more challenging aspects of the base game to affect their experience. But I think the biggest gripe people have with Frontiers is how you're quite literally on rails for most of the game. This is where I believe the Forces 2.0 comments or whatever they're saying about it being a bad game is coming from, for the most part, at least in terms of gameplay. In Forces there were a lot of failsafes in place to help the player not get themselves eliminated, but here I really don't see that too much, but it is there in every island to some extent. There's two islands where it's most noticeable though, and it's the ones with the most 2D sections for main story progression in the open zone. Chaos Island, where the rails and boost pad things on the 2D sections with platforms are completely unavoidable to progress, and Raya Island, where if you fall off one of the platforms while climbing a tower there, a grappling hook thing will pull you back up close to the point where you fell. In Forces there were springs everywhere, and some of them actively discourage progression by bouncing you back up to the opposite platform instead of just letting you fail. In Frontiers there are some springs you could argue the same thing with, but the difference is that you could usually get off whatever course it bounced you to in prior islands, unlike in Forces, which is actually more or less an improvement to make it less difficult for hardcore fans who are used to the games, which I would argue is a good thing. Isn't taking what worked in prior entries in the series and improving those things what the fandom wanted. Unless I'm wrong, wouldn't be the first time. I'm definitely not saying it's wrong to not like it though. Generations had challenge to it, even if some people would beg to differ and call Unleashed superior because it was more challenging to them. It was kind of the perfect formula for the boost then, at least to me, because it wasn't too hard but not unchallenging either, in the same way that I believe Generations isn't too hard but it's still challenging applies to Frontiers and the open zone formula, at least until another game like it releases and changes my mind. All I'm trying to say here is that games that are too hard might be a turnoff for the average consumer, and there's a balance to be found by opting to appeal to the largest demographic, and not making the games too challenging is actually a good decision on Sonic Team's part, at least to me. Also, I don't think Sonic Team is targeting people who want to play Dark Souls, even if the Steam page said Frontiers is a Souls-like for a while. If you like the video, consider subscribing. Know the wait for this one was a little longer than other videos, and you'll have to get used to that if you really want me to switch completely to discussions and maybe reviews. If you want more updates than complete silence, consider joining the Discord. It's free. You just gotta be 13 and up at least to join and not get banned. The link to that will be in the description. That's it. Thanks for watching.